Hey, what's up, guys? Little man with a big opinion here. So today's video, you're gonna see me do some pull-ups because I haven't done my workout today, and it is 9:30 at night. But I also wanted to talk to you about some news stuff, and I am a wearer of many hats. So I've got, my regular 9 to 5 kind of job in education. And Wednesday nights, uh, I help at my local church from about 5 to 8. Uh, we've actually we've set up a security team, and very similar thought process as schools and just many other businesses. And it's something that more and more people in the U.S. are doing, and more organizations are doing. And me and two other guys are, leading that up. So I am typically doing 2 or 3 things at once all the time. And so we're gonna get some pull-ups in, we're gonna get some L-sits in, and that's just about all I have planned for today. Uh, Yesterday I did the CrossFit workout of the day with my cousin, and that was miserable for both of us. And, let me know in the comment section down below the kind of stuff that you want to see more of. Leave your questions, subscribe, do all that sort of stuff. I'm going to do my first set of pull-ups. For the longest time, I've been doing sets of 10. And the two ways that I am increasing that number is increasing the number of reps, and at the end, putting on a weighted vest and just pumping out as many of them as I can do. So, getting some progressive overload in, and you will eventually see change. But let's get these pull-ups going. If anything, I am definitely noticing new calluses pop up. But no, there's improvement. I'm seeing, shirts feeling tighter. They feel easier to do, as many of them as I'm doing. And I think I'm sleeping better. So, a couple things in the news that I wanted to talk about. The first one being the U.S. has said that the Strait of Hormuz is now U.S. territory. And if that's the case, then it's an asset that we need to protect. Whether you agree or disagree with the current administration, I feel like it's something that was kind of going to be inevitable, and we have to see how this plays out. The updates on things that I have seen is the UAE has cut off ties with Iran because some of their stuff got, some reports are saying some of their stuff got destroyed. Other reports are saying some of their stuff was attempted to be destroyed. I think this is a regional conflict that has big world issues going on. And it is a most recent enough thing that everyone's got their own speculation. There is a equal amount of praise and concern. I can tell you on the local level, even the idea of fuel prices. I read an article saying fuel prices should go down because if the U.S. is claiming it, they're going to put assets into protecting it, which is something that we want to happen. And in the same breath, I've seen fuel prices are going to go up because, it's contested and Iran is going to continue to damage and try to destroy stuff. I think both of those statements are correct, and we kind of have to, wait and see. So, that can be concerning for someone that drives an old diesel vehicle as your primary form of transportation. It's a good thing I get close to 800 miles on a full tank and that I only work about half a mile from home. But for others, that could turn into an issue. When diesel prices go up, the cost of basically everything goes up because most of our stuff is shipped, via 18-wheeler. Now, that's how our infrastructure is set up and put in place. We got one round in. I also switched to a wider grip, but 2 sets of 10. The next thing is infrastructure in the U.S., specifically water infrastructure in 7 states, has been, sabotaged, hacked, something done that U.S. intelligence believes it's Iran doing it. And from a preparedness standpoint, that's almost, to me, that's definitely more scary than, claiming, the Strait of Hormuz. Every single one of us needs water. We need water basically every day. It's part of that old saying of 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, 3 minutes without air, 3 seconds without, hope/a plan, 3 hours without shelter. It goes into that rule of 3. If you've never heard that, jot that one down. It affected 7 states. Some of it was as simple as, they turned a piece of machinery off and problems could be fixed in a couple of hours. In other cases, boil water notices were sent out. The entire systems had to be rebooted. Anytime something like this happens, they've got to do checks, based on contaminants, especially if it involves water treatment. One of the easiest things to mess that up is just like reversing the flow. Lots of things can go bad in a situation like this. And, most of the places that were reporting this were very, very small communities. I was reading some places it was, 1,500 people in this town. In this place, 20,000 people. But in today's world of fighting, it is a much greater issue to have your population miserable and upset than it is, losing a battle or an army, or, fighting isn't your guys show up, my guys show up, we beat each other up, we kill each other, and whoever has more dudes left at the end is the winner. And, then we're going to get together and write up an agreement on who gets what, and we'll sign it and we'll all be happy. The logistical nightmare of, I would put it in the trillions of moving parts. Hearts of Iron 4 does a pretty good job of showcasing, all of these different steps that go into running a country and fighting a war, and it's probably just scratching the surface. If there's issues with any type of food supply, whether that's for soldiers, your allies, your people, in our modern era, we lose our minds when we lose internet. That's on the civilian side. On the military side, lots of capabilities. It's an issue. Guidance has been released on, upgrading things and how to prevent other issues. But it's a ever evolving battlefield. And that is something that us at home are going to have to, you can't just rely on the government to, protect you. Sorry, newsflash. It takes a lot more than that. And if you haven't put anything in place and you're reading stories about water infrastructure problems, I've got a Mountain Dew 2-liter bottle filled up with water sitting over there. We can drink it if we need to. We can bathe with it if we need to. We can give it to the cats or the dogs or the chickens. We can prepare food with it. And I know, 100% for a fact that someone on a computer in another country can't mess that water up. I'm not going to hold it for 10 plus years because I'd be worried more about the plastics in the bottle than anything else. But, that 2-liter bottle gives me, 6 to 8 hours of breathing room to come up with, a contingency on more water. Then multiply that by a dozen of those containers. Multiply that by, 5-gallon water containers, a rainwater collection system, an 1,100-gallon storage tank. There's all prepping is accumulating stuff and skills and waiting to utilize them based on the current problem. And water is a part of every single one of those contingencies. Because once you get past the 3-day mark, you start to have issues. Humans have survived longer in rare cases, and, they've done documentaries and stuff. But it is a very manageable thing to work on. We're on to set number 3. I'm getting tired of jumping up, so I'm going to use the step. I think I might be able to do more sets tonight. Because I do a set, I am kind of breathing a little heavy. My heart rate's at 97. But then I get to sit here and talk to y'all for a couple minutes and get a nice recovery in. You know, you can utilize when I take a break to do an exercise. And you can also do an exercise until you hear my wonderful voice talking again. But I want to wrap it up there. I don't like these going too terribly long. I'm working and talking with some friends that we're going to do our best to kind of, turn this into a better kind of podcast experience. I'm setting my office up with a table and some chairs, and the hope is to get some of the guys together and I talk through what we talk about for these other issues with y'all, but I don't really have them here, and so it kind of, for me, it's talking into a camera and y'all listening and hopefully commenting and building this up. But if there's something you want me to cover, let me know down below. If there, topics, skills, whatever. Just, let me know where you want things to go. Subscribing really helps. Liking the video helps. Leaving your comments helps. Sharing this with everyone that you think would gain something from these videos really helps. But until then, I'll catch you in the next one. I'll do one more set for y'all on camera. An even 40. Now I'll catch you in the next one.